Hi, welcome. My name is Charlotte. I love colorful and sparkly makeup, but I try to be critical of capitalism and avoid over-consuming makeup. One of the ways I like to do that is by going through my collection of makeup I already own and shopping my stash when I get the craving for a particular vibe. Today I'm going to be showing you a capsule collection of cherry themed makeup that I put together. I was inspired to do this theme when I saw a recent video by Kelly Gooch. She mentioned that cherry themed makeup seems to be trending right now. There are a lot of cherry adjacent colors coming out, a lot of like cherry themed branding in the marketing of new releases. And when I went to find inspiration images for this, I actually noticed that a lot of these are from like perfume releases. And the way Kelly described this color as like a deep, rich, black cherry kind of color, she talked about it as a wintry theme. It also seems appropriate for Valentine's Day. Now I will say I think there are two interpretations of the cherry theme. Those go along with two major varieties of cherries, which are sweet cherries, darker black cherries, versus sour cherries or tart cherries, which tend to be brighter in color. I'm not a cherry connoisseur. I used to live in Michigan, so everything I know about cherries I learned in Michigan. But I'm not a huge cherry eater. I love other kinds of fruit, but for some reason I just never got into cherries. But I do have an unfortunate taste for cherry flavored like candies and maraschino cherries. I kind of like that like artificial cherry flavor. And I also really like cherry colored things. I think that's a really beautiful aesthetic theme as well. So I'm excited to get into some of this cherry colored makeup, swatch it out for you. Without further ado, let's get swatching. Starting with cheek makeup, this blush is the absolute first thing I thought of when I thought of cherry themed makeup. This is the shade Swelter from Phytosurgence. You can see this is just such a gorgeous true red. It is slightly cool toned, but it blends out to a really rich cherry strawberry kind of red. It doesn't blend out to a hot pink, which on me tends to be the risk when it comes to makeup that has cooler like cherry toned undertones. But I have really just found this to be the perfect shade of red blush for me. I also know this shade doesn't have a lot of white in it, so it's meant to be flexible across various depths of skin tone. And yeah, this is just the epitome of like a juicy cherry red to me. For highlighter, I feel like the obvious choice would be something with a pink reflect. I don't have anything that's very obviously pink or cherry colored in my collection, but I do have this MAC strobe cream. This is just a deluxe mini size, but it's the shade Pinklite. So I assume it has some kind of pink shimmer in it. But really to me, it's more just like a neutral highlighter. And I just find because of the liquid formulation of this, it's one of my go-tos when I'm looking for a juicy highlight, like a really glowy, glossy, summery cheek. So I think that's why I associate it with like fruit. I do like to pair these two together in the summer to get that look. It's definitely not the wintry black cherry vibe, more like a bright summery tart cherry kind of vibe. I have a ton of great cherry themed lip colors to choose from. I think that's because I tend to be really attracted to brown when it comes to lip colors, especially warm browns. Over the last year, I found that I ended up purchasing a lot of brown lip colors that I expected to be warmer than they turned out to be. So I ended up with a lot of like cool, berry, kind of chocolate cherry type shades. And they've really grown on me. I was actually worried that a lot of them would look super unflattering on my warmer complexion, but some of these have ended up being real favorites and go-tos. I'm going to start with the most obvious one, and that is this e.l.f. Sheer Slick Lipstick in the shade Black Cherry. This is widely considered to be a dupe for Clinique Black Honey, which is supposed to be like one of those kind of magical, transformative, universally flattering shades. Personally, I don't love this on myself. I find it goes a bit pink, the way I was describing before, which I don't like. I mainly keep it around because Clinique Black Honey goes viral every few years, and I'm just worried if I got rid of it, then I would one day be tempted to repurchase it. So I keep it around as an option, but it's not something I reach for like a ton. I also pulled out this Nabla Beyond Jelly lipstick in the shade Ardor. I really love this Nabla Beyond Jelly formula. This was one that I expected from photos online to be a bit warmer, like more of a brick brown. So I was a little bit disappointed when I saw it in person, but I have really come to love this color. I think it's a perfect chocolate cherry. I think it's described on their website as like a cocoa shade. It has almost those purpley berry undertones, and I find it's just so perfect for when I want to add a little bit of vibrance and color and like elegance to my lips, but I don't want to stray too far from a nude type color. So that's actually been one of my most reached for lip shades recently. Another new favorite is this Naturium Phyto-Glow Lip Balm in the shade Crimson. This is another one I reach for all the time, and I was so surprised at how flattering I found it on my skin tone. I kind of think of this in my mind as a purple color, so when I swatch it out, I'm always surprised at how brown and like neutral it really looks. Again, this is super nude adjacent, but just with a little bit of like zhuzh. And I also think it's just exactly that color of dark, sweet black cherries. Compared to the e.l.f. shade, I think you can see that these two just look a lot more nuanced. They have shades of brown in them. This dark cherry color is like a really interesting and nuanced mix of brown, red, pink, purple. So these are more of my black cherry colors. And I have a couple more that are a bit of a different take on cherry. Starting with the Naturium Phyto-Glow Lip Balm in the shade Ruby. This is the same formula as this shade Crimson, and I do think that they were limited edition holiday shades, so I'm guessing they're not available anymore. That's not to say that you couldn't find colors very similar to them in formulas like this. Obviously, Ruby is a bit of a different take on the cherry vibe. It's much brighter and more vibrant, more punchy, more summery, getting at those tart cherry kind of vibes. This one does go a little bit pink on me. It's more like when I want a bit of a pop, but it's still very sheer. It's not nearly as pigmented as some other like brighter red glosses that I've tried. And then I had to pull out like a true red lipstick. This is the Fenty liquid lipstick in the shade Fiyaproof. This is just such a punchy, true red, like a platonic red in my mind. It definitely leans on the darker side, and it also leans on the warmer side, which is nice for me. With a warmer complexion, it does look like a neutral red on me. Which again can be kind of hard to find. I like that this is a super bold red, but it still has that depth and elegance that some of these other kinds of shades have. I think that helps bring a little bit of nuance to the color. This might be a kind of color that I would associate with like cherry candy, like sort of an artificial cherry flavor. So this is my little capsule collection of cherry themed lip colors. I also made myself a little custom palette to go with this collection. I thought it would be fitting to store it in this magnetized palette from Glamlite. This is from the Chocolate Martini palette, because I definitely associate that dark cherry color with chocolate and Valentine's Day. Here is my palette. I'm going to swatch it out for you and talk you through some of these shades. This first shade is from the ColourPop Strawberry Shake palette. It's called Shake It Up. I think this is a really nice cherry pink. It's not actually super red, but it does give me the vibe of like a cherry ice cream flavor, something a little fruity. Speaking of fruity, I have a couple of shades here from the Simply Posh Citrus Punch palette. I believe this is the shade Flavorful. This shade has kind of a yellow beige base with a purpley magenta-y kind of shimmer. Okay, I adjusted my lighting slightly. Next I went for this Lisa Eldridge matte shade called Vintage Mulberry. That shade that's described as mulberry I think is very close to what I would imagine as a cherry color. This one is definitely warmer. It's like a very warm brown red. This shade Tropical is also from the Citrus Punch palette. This one is pink with a green reflect. I knew I wanted to include this one because A, I love green, and B, I thought it would be fun to incorporate a pop of green because so often you see images of cherries, depicted as like two cherries with like a green leaf and a stem. So I thought this would be the perfect shade to sort of incorporate that. And the other reason I like this particular shade is that the green is like a cool leafy green. It's not a golden green, which I find is more common. This is the shade Pikantny from Glam Shop. I'm sorry if I am butchering the pronunciation of that. This is kind of a middle of the road red shade, a little bit rosy, a little bit coppery. My swatches are getting a little bit out of control. This shade Raw is from the Beauty Bay Earthy palette. It's truly a cool toned true cherry red. Here we have Girls Night Out from the Glamlite Chocolate Martini palette. I thought this would bring a little bit of that purple back into the palette. This is like a really rich brown purple. A lot of these mattes look pretty similar, and I do tend to reach for mattes of like a similar depth level when I'm creating looks, so that's part of it, but I feel like this is more the pink version. This is a warm red version, cool red and purpley, but they're all various versions of like cherry red brown. I think this shade is called Naturally. It's from the Glaminatrix Nearly Natural palette. It's looking more like a true brown here as I'm swatching it with these other cherry toned colors, but it's more like a maroon. You know, in the context of its own palette, it looks very much like a maroon. And then the final shade in the palette is again from the Chocolate Martini palette. This is Chocolate Liqueur. This was really the shade that I thought of when I thought of cherry eyeshadow in my collection. This is a super rich purpley brown. I think it's such a good black cherry color, and it also has a slight golden shimmer, which makes this feel, again, very like rich and chocolatey, desserty. There's something about that warmth paired with some of these cooler reds and purpley shades that feels, I don't know, I just feel like it gives it that sort of like decadent chocolate cherry kind of vibe. So here is my completed palette. I have played around with this palette a little bit and created a look, and unfortunately it did confirm to me that cool toned reds are really not my color. I felt extremely, extremely yellow in the look I made with this palette. So here is my capsule collection of cherry makeup. I'm really happy with how this is looking. I think this collection captures a little bit of the sort of fun vibrancy of red makeup, while also capturing that moodiness, elegance, sophistication of the dark maroon black cherry kind of color. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you did. I hope to see you in future videos like this one. Bye!